This is Deep Dive into Joy, and I'm your host, Gina Richner. Hey, Joy listeners, it's your host, Gina Richner. Welcome back to Deep Dive into Joy, the podcast where we talk about faith, explore how to live fully, and stay grounded in joy only God can give. We speak on many things on this podcast, from testimonies to health and wellness, many topics on career, or just how the Lord shows up for us in the midst of life's battles. I hope that you guys are really enjoying listening to these episodes. Please take a minute to share the podcast either on your socials with a family member or friends, and please leave a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can even hit the follow button on whatever platform you're listening on, and it will update you when new episodes release. I drop new episodes every Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I just want to wish y'all a happy new year. I'm so glad to be back from our break. And before we jump into today's guest, I want to introduce to you today's sponsor of the podcast. You guys, the wait is over. No longer do we have to put up with putting garbage ingredients on our face and skin. I'm talking about Formless Beauty. This incredible line was created by Jenny McCarthy because she wanted to create a line that was transformative, that not only enhances your appearance, but nutrition for your skin, and it aligns with our natural health wellness values. This makeup and skincare line has no talc, phthalates, formaldehyde, and it's paraben-free. Yes, did you know that the makeup you're wearing and the skincare you're putting on your body could have formaldehyde in it? How crazy is that? This is what the FDA is allowing in our beauty products, ladies, and it's sick. And I'm pretty sure they haven't updated any of the listed ingredients in skincare in decades. So why not shop from a company that actually cares about our health and how you look? No compromise here. Jenny created beautiful products like mascara, which I have been searching for a good mascara forever that doesn't have chemicals in it. She has eyeshadow, lip liners, glosses, eyeliners, blushes, skincare, and even tools that you can purchase to do your makeup. She even has bundles available. Like I said, I've been on the search for the mascara, so that is what I bought from her, and the eyeliner. You can't find an eyeliner in the market that doesn't have crappy chemicals in it. So I'm so glad that I found Formless Beauty. It's a miracle. Discover what Jenny has to offer on her products by using my link for a discount. It's https://bit.ly/4PA2Hy1, or you can use my code DEEPDIVE, all capital. You guys aren't going to want to miss this. Change your routine by using clean ingredients that won't harm your health. Formless Beauty, because your beauty and health matters. I will make sure to list that link and the code in the show notes. Today's episode, I am sitting down with Bobbie Johnson. Her and I go way back whenever we attended the same church together years ago. A fun little story and testimony. Bobbie was delivering to my house a couple months ago, and she knew my name and knew who she was delivering to. However, I haven't seen her in ages and didn't recognize her at first. Now, usually I would just let them put the package at the door and not even bother to open and say hi. But this one instance, God was speaking to me, and I just opened the door and I greeted whoever it was. I walked out and I told her hi, still not recognizing her. She had a sweatshirt on that said "Stronger Than the Storm." And it just immediately sparked conversation because I had one on that said "God is good." And as I was talking to her, it just vastly led to me remembering who she was. And I let her inside my house and was just showing her my little podcast area. And I told her that she needed to come on. So hence, here we are today. Now, if anyone knows Bobbie, you know she's a joyful delight to be around. Bobbie is a wife, mom, and grandma who loves the Lord. She has been called to pastoral ministry within the Wesleyan Church. Bobbie's heart is for the broken, that they find restoration and life to the full. You will begin to realize this, why she's for all this once you hear her testimony today. Hi, Bobbie. I want to welcome you to the podcast. I'm so glad that you're here. Before we start, I'd like to ask everybody just a little fun question. What is your favorite drink?
That's an easy one. My favorite drink is iced tea.
Yeah, that's everybody. Literally, I think one person was lemonade. Everybody else has been tea.
It's rare to find me without some.
Really?
Yeah, I'm like Sai on Duck Dynasty.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Forgot about that show. Okay, so like I said, today is all about Bobbie's testimony. So Bobbie, why don't you go ahead and let's hear what you have to tell us.
I will gladly get into that. and thank you, Gina, before I get started. Just thank you for asking and for this opportunity, to share about what God has done in my life. It feels like it's been a really long road.
Oh, yeah.
I just recently turned 55. So I was super excited about getting a senior citizens discount and have yet to use it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my husband just asked me the other day if I used it at McDonald's, and I was like, I can do that. So, yeah.
You guys need to go out to dinner. That's what you need
really,
to tell them.
It's someplace other than McDonald's. Though.
Yeah.
So anyways, no offense, McDonald's. But anyways, so my story and my walk with the Lord really, I think it probably started back in 1997 is when I first accepted the Lord as my Savior. But quite honestly, I think it started way before that, because God has a plan for us. And, as a kid, I was raised in the Lutheran church, and, it was just kind of something we did on Sundays. I believe my dad was a believer, and I trusted that. I hold to that. I lost my dad at a young age. I was just 13 when my dad passed away.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, he and I were very close, and so that was a tough thing. But I remembered going to church with him, and those are very fond memories, and that he at least initiated those conversations. But it wasn't until 1997 when I was 20. At that point, of course, I was already married. We had our first child, and we didn't live here in Clearfield County. We lived in Indiana County, so we are transplants to this area. But it was on February 13th of that year that my husband's brother-in-law was tragically killed at work. And he left behind his wife and 2 small boys. And I knew my husband's family were Christians, and we had talked about those things many times. And I believe leading up to this, the Lord was really working on my heart. He was softening my heart. I look back in hindsight, allowed me to see that. Maybe at the time I didn't always appreciate it.
Yeah.
Or recognize it, but it was during that tragedy that God really was doing a work. And I remember specifically at the funeral, standing where we were sitting, his family, his sister, and that's my husband's sister, and her 2 boys, who I believe were 7 and 8 at the time. They were young. Were sitting in front of us, and it had happened so tragically. What had happened was he was at work, and he was in a hurry to get home, and he worked on a gas pipeline, and he jumped in to help a fella who was working, and it collapsed, and it actually buried him alive. And so it was just horrible, sudden and unexpected. But Jim was a believer, and as I said, many in my husband's family professed to be Christians. But it was that day at the funeral that his youngest son, sitting in front of us, he had this beautiful picture that he had drawn of his dad and Jesus. Oh. And I remember looking over his shoulder and literally thinking to myself, this kid has it more together than I do. And I didn't fully understand what that even meant. I knew what my in-laws had talked to me about, and the opportunities that they had taken to witness to me. My husband at the time, while he had been saved at an early age, was not living for the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just had a very profound impact on me that this child, just while grieving his dad and clearly upset and saddened by the loss, had a joy that I did not understand in those circumstances. Having lost my dad at a young age and at a pivotal point in my life, I didn't get that, and I didn't have that at that time.
It reminds us to have that childlike faith when he says to come as a child, have that faith.
Absolutely. And I believe that, he's had struggles he's had to work through, just like I did at losing a parent. It's not easy. And all the questions and things that you have and milestones in your life that you wish they were there, and
mm-hmm.
you work through all of that. It's been all those years. As I said, I'm 55 and I was 13 at the time. There's not many days that go by that something doesn't make me think of him.
Mm-hmm.
But I hold on to, just as a side note, now as a believer and knowing the hope that we have in Christ and better understanding what that child was experiencing that day, the truth that he knew and the comfort that it gave him, I look forward to the day. I know God has a plan for me in this life, but I look forward to the day that I might see him again.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives me peace. That gives me comfort to know. So at any rate, God used that difficult time in our family, in the witness of a child, to break my heart, and through his grace, allowed me understanding to see him. And so before we moved to Clearfield, it wasn't but a couple months after that we were getting ready to move. I had accepted a job here in Clearfield, and my husband and I and our daughter at the time, who was only 3, we were moving here to Clearfield, and the Lord just brought me to my knees, and I said, you know what, I'm giving it over to you, and I accepted him as my Savior. So that's really how I got started. And then at that time our family was young, and we were moving an hour and a half away from family. And both my husband and I are babies of the family. So, there was that whole dynamic going on, but, it was good for us. And we still say, it was a good decision that we made, to move up here. And this has been our home for all these years. And it's been home to our kids and now to our grandkids. But, over that time and raising kids and, early on in my walk, I was, really just on fire for the Lord. I, sought him out and as a new believer, and just really on fire and seeking him in all things and seeking to learn everything that I could and being in the Word every day and just soaking it all in. We moved to Clearfield and got into a good church home, Bible preaching church, which actually was Hyde Wesleyan, where I attend now. But it was good. We were being fed, and I was growing. My husband rededicated his life to the Lord, and then we had 2 more kiddos. There were 6 years in between our daughters, and then 2 years later we had our son Luke. So, then we were doing the family thing, and just buzzing through life like you do. And I've shared this testimony before, and I often refer to this as, I was chasing after the Lord, and then life kind of took over, and I started to coast. And that is a dangerous place to be. And it's so easy for us to fall into that because life.
Too easy.
When you're busy as a younger couple, and again, everybody's situation is different, and you can fill in the blanks however it fits someone's story or what's happening in their life. But for us, and for me specifically, it just became busy. Mm-hmm. And before you knew it, it was everything else took precedence over where God needed to be. I think back on those times, and it's hard. Aside from the fact that my brain doesn't quite work like it used to, but you have to remember all those details, and maybe in this different season of life, I would remember things differently. But looking back now, there's lots of things I would change, I guess, but you can't go back and do that.
No.
But at least I thought at the time, I was living for the Lord. Every time the church was open, we were there. We had our kids involved in things, and I homeschooled for a couple of years, and every Wednesday night the kids were there, or Sunday nights the kids and kids were involved in things, and right. So doing a lot of good things. None of those things were bad. At the same time, I was involved in my career. The reason we moved here was because I had taken a position out of grad school. I have a master's degree in labor relations. So we had moved here for me to take a job as a labor relations specialist. And that over the years built into a 20 plus year career in human resources. And with each new job and transition came more responsibility, more money, all the things, right? And at the same time, our kids were growing and they were getting involved in things at school. They were doing sports. They were doing music lessons. They were doing this. They were doing that. And so you take all of that together, and in the midst of it's like any other young family. You're just doing life. Mm-hmm. But everything started to crowd out God and God's place. And it wasn't until later in our lives, and I'll touch on that here, that I didn't realize how shallow my relationship with the Lord was. So sometimes, and maybe I shouldn't even go here yet, but sometimes I think, man, what if I would have recognized that? Mm-hmm. What if I would have caught it before everything went south? Because it really was the trial and the tribulation that we've been through that brought me to this deeper relationship with the Lord and an abundant life.
It's crazy how it takes those situations to bring us
it is
back into a deeper relationship with Him. It's because it's a great way to put it, is the shallow relationship with Him. And it just amazes me how it takes some of the darkest times to bring us back. That's the only way it seems like He can get our attention.
Yeah, and I have a pretty thick head, so he had quite a project to work with with me. But you can coulda, shoulda, woulda yourself to death. And if there's anything that I've learned in our journey is that I can't do that. I mean, there's a reason why Paul tells us don't look behind, but focus on what's ahead. Because, it's just, we're human and we make mistakes, but, that is a huge piece of advice I would give, especially to young families. And I know we're probably not to that point yet in this talk, but I guess I'll just throw it in there. I mean, that is the purpose of testimony, to share what we've experienced and how God has worked in our lives, that we can come alongside other people and help them, A, in their struggles, but B, also not to necessarily go down the same path that we did. So it was really, really hard. And again, it's important to note that at the time I didn't think it was hard, that we were just doing all the things, right? your career is progressing, and I was making good money, and my kids were involved in, travel soccer and doing all these things, and also, piano. And my oldest daughter was, headed off to culinary school for a time. And it just seemed like the cookie cutter little life. And again, I need to stress, none of those things are bad.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's how somebody's life works out, that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. But our heart focus, and as leaders of our family, God was not at the center of it. We'd like to think that he was, but he wasn't. So that part of my life I refer to as like spiritual coasting, because really in coasting, you don't have to do anything. You think about when you're riding a bike, and I like to think of it in terms of, I guess in contrast, you're pedaling hard up a hill, and there's nothing more gratifying as a kid when you're on that bike and you come down the other side, right?
Yeah.
And you're just coasting and flying down, and it's like life is good. The air is blowing through your hair, and it's like, yeah, life is good, You don't have to do anything. You just sit there and go. But eventually, you're going to stop, right? Because it's not going to keep going. Mm-hmm. And it's deceiving, and really what for me was the issue was that everything else had taken precedence and had taken the place where God was supposed to be. So really, at the end of the day, it was very idolatrous. Mm-hmm. These things became idols. So having a good career, making sure you have enough money to be financially sound is not a bad thing. But if you put it in the place of God, mm-hmm. it is. Living for your kids. You could say, denying yourself. I gave of myself all these years, and I've said that. I've gave of myself all these years for my kids. Like, I'm patting myself on the back. Mm-hmm. And yes, there's a certain degree of doing that is part of humility. Mm-hmm. But it was because I was putting my kids in a place, even my family relationships in a place where I should have had God as a priority. Mm-hmm. And what I think we miss in this world, and what I did, was that we think that by doing all these things, we're taking care of business, mm-hmm. And then it becomes on us. Like, we are the reason for the success. We are the reason why this thing does well. We are the reason why our kids make good choices or whatever. And in reality, if you can step back, if I could do things differently, it would have been more of what it should have been. Putting God first, trusting him, remembering that those children in my family were given to me by him, that he is the author of all of that, and that he loved them more than I ever could, mm-hmm. and that he's got this. And not that we just kind of cut them to the wind and, you don't fulfill those parental responsibilities and all that, but I had taken the trust out of it. Yeah. I think. And there was not a reliance on him. And so I see that as a spiritual coasting. I was really, lukewarm at best. And it wasn't until, as my kids got older, got into their, teenage years, that God really got our attention. And so this is the part of the story where God says, mm-hmm. We're gonna go deep in this now. Okay. And so it was at that point we were just blindsided by addiction came into our family, and it was one of our kiddos, and we literally never saw it coming, and probably because we were so busy. I think back now, are we to blame? No, I won't let that. I won't let my heart go there. Mm-hmm. Could we have done things differently? Yes, I believe that. But everybody's responsible for their own decisions. And there were some choices made that snowballed. And it just was literally devastating to us and to our family and to our daughter, you know. And so we would walk that journey. We have walked that journey for, you know, the last decade. And there is, let me back up and say this. There's a reason why Jesus told us in this life, you will have trial and tribulation.
Yeah.
And the reason is because we will. Right?
Yeah. It's for sure.
He gave us fair warning. What do we do in that? I mean, it's a given. We are going to face it. Are they all going to be the same? No. Is everybody's trial going to be the same? No. But we're going to face them. And what he wants us to do is he wants us to face it with him. Right? And I thought I was walking with him, and this is where I'm going with this is what I meant when I said that my relationship I never realized was so shallow. Because I may have believed in him, and I did believe in him. And I do believe that my conversion was legitimate.
Right.
You know, it was.
I like to call it baby Christian.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Because I was the same way. It's, you know, I'd have my Bible open, I'd maybe read a verse every couple months, or, you know, I believed in him, I was saved, I was baptized. Was I really walking with him, though?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and, you know, and it's interesting to use that terminology, I think, because again, we're to come like children. Why? Because children are dependent. Right? And you know, I had inadvertently gotten pretty full of myself and doing all the things that I wasn't giving God his place of honor. I wasn't giving him the credit, and I certainly wasn't depending on him. Not in the sense that we're supposed to or that we're called to. And so, you know, our situation, I think it's important to note too that just because we do face trials and tribulations, it's not that God rejoices in those. You know, it saddens him when things like this happen and people make choices, right? Because those choices affect everybody, not just the individual, but it affects, you know, others. But, you know, I too was making choices, right? And, choices to not necessarily have him first until we got to the point where it was like, I literally don't know what else. I can't do this without him. And you come to the end of yourself. I recently read a book, and I can't remember I'm terrible with author names, but anyhow, he wrote a book called I've Seen the End of You, and he's actually a neurosurgeon. And, you know, we need to come to the end of ourselves. How that happens is, again, going to be different for everybody, just like the trials and tribulations are. But for us, I mean, it was addiction. And it was absolutely, it was devastating. It was devastating, to see your child become not your child. It was devastating to see what you thought, like just such a drastic change in your hopes and dreams, I guess, as a parent. And yet at the same time, like still cherishing you cherish your child, and no matter what, it's not about outcomes, but there is a grief, right? Of we build these things up in our minds of what outcomes are supposed to be. And I think that all goes into, for me, it was, went into, this is the plan, this is what we're doing, and this is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
Because that's the way it has to be. Well, says who? I might say that, but and it clearly isn't what happened. So, in the midst of that, I try not to share too many details of that, out of respect for our daughter.
Right.
Right. And also recognizing that those details are her story. But we as parents, we have a story too. And we came to find out that as family members of someone living in addiction, you absolutely have to get help. And we had, there was somebody in our family who had walked a similar path. So we did have them as a resource, and that was great because they reiterated to us the need for support and the need to, get help. And the tough thing with addiction is, as a parent, you look at the people who struggle with addiction as the ones who need the help, right? Which is not untrue. There is, just with any disease and any disorder, there is help to be had, right? And in order to live victoriously. But as family members, it's very easy to just be like, well, why don't you just stop? Why don't you just not do this? Or, and we don't realize how much help we need. And so that started a whole family recovery journey for us. And we being my husband and I, had tried some options. There really weren't many options available here in the area. So, long and short of it, after a couple different attempts to start something, we came across a program called PALS, which is Parents of Addicted Loved Ones. It is a faith-based program, out of the western part of the country that is slowly making its way east. And we ended up starting a group. We got trained, started a group, and actually next month it'll be the 5th. We'll hit year 5 of having the PAL Family Recovery Group.
I'll make sure to put that in the show notes so people can have a resource.
Oh yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. We meet on Tuesday nights at Hyde Wesleyan Church at 5:45, and it's ebbed and flowed. Right. Yeah,
as is everything.
But it's such a need. But it was healing for us to be able to come alongside other people in what I would argue is one of the darkest times of our lives. To come alongside other people who were going through the same thing. And so it was one of those situations where you want to curl up in a ball, you don't want to go anywhere. You don't know what's happening. You don't know if the next time the phone's going to ring, if someone's going to call you and tell you that your child's dead. It's horrible. And all the while, knowing that your kiddo whom you love is out there. You don't know where they're at. You don't know what's happening. And not only that, but the impact it has to the rest of your family. The impact that it had on our relationship as husband and wife, the impact that it had on our 2 other children, and also the impact it had on our grandkids. So my husband and I are raising our 2 grandkids. Although we are in a very different place, I am grateful to say today than we were even just a year ago. So, in that space, and I can testify to that here in just a bit, but, it's hard, and it impacts everybody. The dynamic is different for everybody, but it gave us a purpose to say, you know what? Okay, so we can either curl up in a ball and give into this, or we can do what Jesus tells us we can do, and we have the opportunity to do, and that is to lean into Him. And in order to do that, I had to strip back all the stuff, all the junk, and you get back to the main thing, and let the main thing be the main thing. And that's Him. And coming and humbling ourselves and saying, none of this other stuff matters. You could take it all away. I don't care. But I've got to be right with you. I've got to, because I never recognized until that point how badly I needed Him, other than when I first got saved, and in both occasions, it's God's grace alone that allowed me to even know that. So, I wouldn't wish it on anybody to have to go through what we've gone through. I wish as a mom, I could take it from my daughter. Like any parent, that when their child is hurt, that, you could just take it. That she wouldn't bear the ramifications of that, or the heartbreak, or the darkness that she's experienced. I'd give anything to be able to take that. I can't do that. But I know someone who can. And again, the Lord can do that. He is in the business of changing lives. And He used that situation in our life to put us on a different trajectory. And for that alone, I am grateful.
I also don't think we realize that how powerful our prayers are in interceding for them and praying over them too.
Yes.
Yeah,
for sure. And and I would encourage anybody listening to this who may have a child in that. It's so easy to lose hope. But I would encourage you not to, because, I would often say to my daughter, God is going to save you from this side of heaven or the next. And I just, like most parents, so desperately wanted to be sure that it would be this side. That's the big fear that everybody has in this space. But let's face it, everybody has fear. And I think for me, looking back as part of my testimony, I was one of the things that, again, if I could do differently, I became very legalistic, and I didn't touch on this, but as we were raising our kids, and I mentioned about being in church all the time and doing all the things. It really was, I didn't recognize it at the time, but a very legalistic way of parenting. I would go out on a limb and say it leaned to that end more than it did to grace-filled. And I kind of, yes, I can laugh about it now, but really in all seriousness, it's not funny.
Right.
But I can't change it. And yet, for what? So that we could look a certain way. So my kids could present a certain way. I'm glad now I don't quite understand what my motive was, but I think if I had to guess, I would say it was out of fear.
Yeah.
Because, my husband and I, before I got saved, I was not living for the Lord. And, I so desperately did not want that for my kids. I wanted them. And so I did what I thought I could do.
Yeah.
But it's not about me. It wasn't about my husband and I and our efforts per se. It was about giving them back to the Lord because He gave them to us. He expected us to be good. He gifted those kids to us. And, I think my actions and how I handled things was really just out of fear. So, in all of that, it was a learning to trust and go deep with the Lord, and recognize that, I and of myself am nothing without Him.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. I couldn't even probably make it through a day now, and
No,
things are really, really great, but let alone in what we went through,
mm-hmm.
And so over the course of time, custody, we have custody of the grandkids, but as I said, that has, over the last year, just to see God work has been just amazing. And admittedly, there was a time when we thought that this would never happen. We never saw this coming. The kids are rebuilding the relationship with our daughter, who is doing very well.
Great.
Doing very, very well. So we're very happy about that. And, again, rebuilding relationship. They've been rebuilding relationship with their dad, and his wife and family, and God's grace has just, I can't even fully explain. I am just at a loss to explain just how amazing, and that sounds so cliched. That's such a Christianism, I guess, if you want to say it that way. And I kind of hate stuff like that, but truly, how amazing. And we don't deserve any of it.
No.
But He gives it, and He gives it abundantly. And to be able to recognize it and see it. And one thing I do want to share, and I know I'm kind of going off here a little bit, of what I had really wanted to talk about, but one of the most beautiful things that I remember over the last year, with my grandkids is, it's a blessing in my life to care for them. And at the same time, it's probably one of the hardest things my husband and I have done. We're old.
Sure. Yeah. It's like restarting over.
Senior citizen discount, right?
Yeah.
And, it's kind of weird to go to McDonald's, I guess, when you think about it, and get a senior citizen's discount and a Happy Meal at the same time. It's just something just not like out of order about that. But anyways,
But what a godsend that they have two beautiful grandparents to take care of them at the same time.
But it's not always, let me tell you, it is not always beautiful.
I know.
It is a walk, literally. And quite honestly, and just as I'm even saying this to you today, learning to depend on Him, I had to learn how to do that again, right? I had to do that because I need it literally every day. And even with the developments and how the dynamics are changing, and they're so beautiful and awesome, and I'm so grateful for them, there's still something to navigate.
Yeah.
It's not, it isn't easy. I'm not going to make it sound like it is. It's not.
It's not all sunshine and rainbows.
No, it really isn't. And that's real. You know what I mean? And there are real struggles. There are real frustrations. And I just said to somebody yesterday, I had to say to the grandkids, can you please go in your room? Your grandfather and I need, we're overstimulated. We need just a minute or 30.
Or 30, yeah.
But one of the most beautiful things that I can remember over the last year is being able to pray with my grandkids. And that's something that we do every night, but, and daily. It's something we do throughout the day, but particularly at night, I would pray for restoration. And of course, at the time, I'm going to be honest, I was praying for restoration for my daughter, for her to her kids. And God wove this tapestry of restoration that is still blowing our minds, because he brought their dad to them, and not just their dad, but grandparents and great grandparents, and a stepmom who loves them very much, and siblings, and I mean,
that's awesome.
Aunts. I mean, we don't even fully understand. We think we know what we're praying for, but do we? I didn't.
No.
Praying for restoration, I had a very, very limited view and an intent in that prayer. And God said, let me show you what I'm going to do with this. Never in a million years saw that coming. And not only that, but that my daughter and my grandkids' dad, they get along, and she's become good friends with their stepmom. Like, it is, and they're coming to church. It's beautiful. Only God could have done that, right? And so during that journey, as we got, custody, and we were going through all these things and all these transitions, I felt like God was leading me into something more. And I really couldn't put my finger on it. I felt that nudging. And so I had gone into a Bible study, on Esther, one of my favorite Old Testament, books. And it was called Surrendered, believe it or not. And it was through that Bible study that I recognized God's call in my life into full-time ministry. And I struggled terrible, even with everything we've been through. I hit a wall, and I was like, I trust you, Lord. You've been doing
are you sure?
Things,
are you sure?
This is just really whack.
Yeah.
Right. So, so then I did another Bible study. I was like, okay, I just I needed, I don't know, kind of like a fleece, I guess, if you want. I had to do something more. So, anyways, went through it, and it just kept coming back to it. And the Holy Spirit was just, it's like, no, this is it. This is what you need to be doing. And so much so that actually I didn't even tell my husband for 8 months.
Wow.
I worked through that bunch, just me and God, right, for 8 months. And, of course, when I told him, he was like, okay, then that's what we're going to do. Right. And so, if I'd have just, wish I would have responded that way initially, but, anyways, that all played a part, and it all had a purpose. And so here I am at 55, preparing for full-time ministry. And every time I say that, it just seems so weird to me.
Praise Jesus.
But, I'm grateful, and I know, the only thing I know for sure is 2 things. God has called me to this, and God will equip me for this, because I'm not ready for this.
Right.
Okay. But he is making a way. He has made a way for the last, this is, I guess, year 3. I don't know. I lose track of time.
I know.
That's part of being old.
Goes too fast.
Yeah. But, I've been taking classes at night, and I'm sure every denomination or whatever has a different protocol or what have you. But, I have a great team. I work at High Wesleyan Church. So, Pastor Stephen and Pastor Angel, have been great. Pastor Loretta, and then, and my church family, very supportive and confirming of this call on my life. And so I'm grateful for that. It is not lost on me, for sure. And the other people on the ministerial board, at the district level, helping me through that. And so, God has just put people in places, and working at the church, I learned so much that I'm not going to learn in a class, about it's been, the last year, has been, somebody just asked me about it today. And I said, to be honest with you, it's been painful. And they kind of looked at me like, what? Like, I don't think they expected me to say that. Because I can say that with a smile on my face, not because I've enjoyed it, because I'm telling you that it has been really hard, because ever since accepting that call and surrendering and saying, Lord, whatever, I'm all in, whatever you want, I will do. And, it's very freeing, but at the same time, it's painful, because, God is, Pastor Steven just talked this morning about forging. It's not the same as assembling, and, forging is hard. Forging takes work, and it hurts. Yeah. And so, I think just being willing to let God do what it is he wants to do, and trusting that he's going to lead me and lead our family and where he wants us to be. The only thing, I am also sure that, it's just, God is not going to allow the brokenness to fall void. He's going to use it, and he's allowed it for that purpose.
Yep. So works everything for our good. Yeah. His good.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of leaning into that. And, and that's kind of where we're at today. So, I think looking back over that testimony, it's a matter of, chasing after him as a new believer, and then that period of coasting and just kind of coasting through life. And yeah, I believe in him, but is he really Lord of my life? And then, the calling. And so all of that had to happen for me to get to the point where I was to be able to say yes to him. Yeah. And so now it's just a matter of walking in that calling. And I don't know fully yet where it's going to go, but that's where he's brought me to,
Yeah. That's a great reminder for me, because I don't know, I struggle with doing this podcast, but like you said, like, I know that I was called to it. And I think I struggle with, like, I don't know how long it's going to last, because I want it to keep going. But I just see him working, and he keeps bringing me the testimonies. And as long as he brings me the people, then I'll keep doing it. But yeah.
I think it's our human nature to want to know the outcome. And so, hope, which is what God gives us, right? Through Jesus. Hope is not dependent on outcomes. Hope is hope because of him. And he is right there beside us. And he wants to walk it with us. And there's a reason why, another reason why he tells us, do not worry about tomorrow. Because today's got enough trouble of its own.
Yes, amen.
We cannot handle it.
No.
We can't. And, we try. I've tried. And where did it get me? Maybe by the world standards, might have got me somewhere.
Yeah.
But that's not the economy I want to live in. Am I in it? Are we made to live in this world? Yes. Why? For him. To build the kingdom. And that's why we're here.
To make heaven crowded.
That's right. We're to make heaven crowded. And so that requires us to live in this world that we live in a way that glorifies God. And that isn't something I'm always good at, right? Because I get in the way. But if we truly keep our eyes on him, I've often talked to my grandkids about this. Like, look, eyes on me. Jesus, it's like Jesus is saying, eyes on me. You know what I mean? Like, keep our eyes. Too many times, I think sometimes we look for his hand instead of seeking his face. You know? And if we just keep our eyes on him, he will guide us. Where we get into trouble is we want to know where he's taking us. We want to know what the next step is going to be. And really all we need to know is he's the one guiding us and that our eyes are fixed on him. And so we take our eyes away, that we get confused and confuddled and we don't know what's happening. You know, so, peeling things back to be able to get to that point is where I've had to get to. And like I said, I get in the way a lot.
We all do.
but it's, you know, God's grace is good, and you come back and say, Lord, I'm sorry, and give me focus. You know, give me focus.
Yeah, I mean, even I got to look at it too. Like, even if, say, I only get to a year with this and it comes to an end, I have to look at it as, you know, that would be over 40 episodes, way over that, of seeds planted for future generations to listen to. And, you know, it wasn't for nothing. So,
and think of the people that you have, like you're saying, the seeds planted, and hearing, you know, for people to hear, like, they're not alone. You know, like, oh, you know, because oftentimes, especially in our walk, you know, we can beat ourselves up, and I believe the enemy loves to fill our head full of that kind of stuff, and in comparison and all the other things that we can fall prey to. But we can come back to the main thing. Just come back to the main thing.
Yeah.
And he's the main thing. And what does he say about us? And I think one of the things that has helped me tremendously over the last year, through this time, has been accountability. And I'm grateful Pastor Angel. I mean, again, I have Pastor Stephen and Pastor Angel there at the office all the time, but Pastor Angel and I meet every other week, pretty regularly, and sometimes we miss. Usually it's me, it's not her. But that has been so great to kind of just work through things and have somebody there who's not afraid to ask hard questions.
That's what I wish I had. Like, I could just go to somebody every week and be like, here's all the questions I have from the week. I think that'd be awesome.
Well, and you know, really, it's a discipleship thing. And her and I, while we do have conversations about what's happening specifically in our life, we do have a discipleship program that she utilizes, that gives us some structure. And it's, you know, it's always amazing. Again, God is so cool because so oftentimes where we're at in that discipleship program is exactly what I need to focus on, or maybe even she's struggling with, you know what I mean? So, that keeps it real.
Yeah, that's really cool to bounce back and forth off of each other.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely, in this walk, it is absolutely, I mean, it's necessary. I mean, Jesus tells us, go and make disciples. You don't just lead somebody to Christ and then cut them off. Right. You know, that's not making a disciple, right? It's come alongside. And so that has been really cool for me. And I can see, as I move forward in my preparation for ministry, that this is something, an area that God is putting on my heart, more so, like, about being that and fostering that in the church. You know, Stephen got us this book for it's called The Whole Counsel of God, and it's like a catechism. So it's like it walks through, and I was going through. I was so excited. I'm a total book nerd. Okay, and so if I'm not reading a book, I'm listening to one. Yeah. And so I couldn't wait to get home and get into that. And but it was like great. You know, it starts out basic things, and somebody who's new in their walk, we assume, I think, as older Christians, like they already know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people get led astray. It's like as soon as you come to Christ, it's like, okay. It's like, where do you go from here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and the key about accountability and what's been great and what I've really appreciated is that, my accountability partner, she's not afraid to ask the tough questions.
Mm-hmm.
If we're gonna have someone who's holding us accountable, we don't want just like our best friend who's gonna just agree with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody that is, and I have so appreciated that, because that's how you grow.
Mm-hmm.
And
and you need to take the constructive criticism.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's the other side of it, our responsibility for sure of having a teachable spirit, not getting offended at every little thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was honestly, prior to this last year, a difficulty for me.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think it is for me still.
Yeah. And I've gotten better, but I still have, it's just human nature,
mm-hmm.
Depending on your mood or whatever, right?
Yeah.
How somebody says something, you take it wonky.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Or I just get emotional and start crying.
Yeah. Yeah. I get like that too. That's tough, but it just, for me, that's been a real help over the last year. So we just keep on keeping on.
Yeah, sure do. Bobbie, I want to thank you so much for sharing with us today. And your testimony is just a reminder that even in the hardest seasons, God is still present, still working, and still faithful. If you're listening today and walking through something heavy, know this: you are not alone, and your story isn't over yet. As we close, I hope my friend's testimony reminds you that God sees every tear, He hears every prayer, and He walks with us through the fire, not around it. So whatever season you are in, just hold on. God is still writing your story. And if this episode spoke to you, I hope that you take a moment to reflect, pray, or just share it with someone who might need encouragement. So Bobbie, I end my podcast with these 3 questions with every guest. The first one is, what is your favorite Bible verse? And it's usually for this season. I know there's a lot of favorites, but.
Well, my favorite one has to be I came upon it out of the second Bible study that I was doing when I first felt called in ministry. And that's out of Zechariah 4:6 that reads, that He said to me, "This is what the Lord says to Zerubbabel. It is not by force nor by strength, but by my Spirit, says the Lord of heaven's armies." And that's my favorite because everything we do, every purpose God has for us, every step we take, it is by His strength.
Yeah.
And if I can humble myself and remember that,
mm-hmm.
that, my equipping comes from Him. God uses me in the unique way that He has created me. But yet that equipping comes from Him,
mm-hmm.
and that He will see it through.
Yeah.
So that's what I keep coming back to. So that would be my favorite.
Yeah. I literally pray every day for Him to just give me the strength, because it's not just physically, like, I don't think I'd be able to get out of bed without Him these days. It's physically, it's mentally, it's spiritually. So it's something I pray every morning is just, Lord, give me the strength for this day. Help me get through this day. Walk with me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's beautiful. What legacy would you like to leave behind? It's a big question. Everyone has a difficulty with it. It could be through your career, it could be through your grandkids, anything.
I would have to say, overall, I'd have to say that the legacy I'd want to leave behind would, I know this sounds cliched, but a legacy of love, that the kind of love that for God and for others, that, at the end of the day, if I walk out of here and it ends today, that would be what I would want people to remember. And not me, but the restoration and the love and all of that abundant life that comes from Christ. That's what I would want.
It's beautiful. And what is something you would tell your younger self today?
I'd probably say get over yourself.
Seriously. Same.
It's funny.
So let's have a little bit of fun and we'll move into rapid fire. What is a favorite way to rest?
My favorite way to rest is to sit in silence.
Yeah, like you told your grandchildren to go to the room.
Yes. Yes, I like silence.
Yeah. One word for this season of life.
I want to say chaos, but it doesn't sound
It can be
good.
whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, no, it's just, for the season of
Chaos
life.
doesn't have to be bad.
I would say growing.
Growing?
Let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Target run or Amazon order?
Amazon order.
Favorite show to rewatch?
I'm not a big TV show person, but I do like to rewatch Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit.
I've never saw it.
Oh,
Never saw it.
it's Pastor Angel. You have to sit down. No, I'm a Lord of the Rings geek. Yeah.
Pizza or tacos?
Pizza.
If Jesus came to dinner tonight, what would you panic clean first?
My stove.
Your stove. Because that's the first thing he'll look at.
It's a mess. I don't
Favorite snack?
Favorite snack. Oh, Colby Jack cheese.
Oh, good one.
Yeah.
Bobbie, thank you again for coming on. I greatly appreciate that you were bold to share with us today. We do have a surprise that I want to share with y'all. Bobbie will be joining me next season to do episodes on the Bible. We're not exactly sure which way the Lord's going to take us yet, but I hope that you guys stay tuned for that. Okay, Joy listeners, you can follow me on all podcast platforms. Find me on social media for more content at gina.richner. That's on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You can also follow my YouTube page at youtube.com/Gina-Richner00. Like I said earlier, make sure to leave a review. You can reach out to me on socials if you would like to join me on an episode. And as always, go out and find the joy today. Bye, friends.